Hey buds, it is Andy here, coming at you with a special bonus episode of the show. I recorded a brief interview with Wildflower, who is one of the Cube Fellowship members that was attending CubeCon this year. It's effectively a tournament report, and you get to hear about all the cubes that Wildflower drafted at CubeCon, which has zero overlap with the cubes I drafted at CubeCon, because as you will soon hear, Wildflower is a galaxy brain sicko, whereas I am a tiny brain baby. Huge thank you to everybody that supports the show on Patreon or especially has bought one of our Cube Fellowship supporter pins. You are the reason we were able to send Wildflower to CubeCon. I will put a link in the show notes to the supporter pins if you want to help us send more great people like Wildflower to events like this in the future. Enjoy! Hey everybody, this is Andy here, and I've got a special guest on this segment of the show, which is Wildflower, who is one of the Cube Fellowship recipients that recently played at CubeCon. Wildflower, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, Andy. It's good to be here.
So, was this your first organized Cube event you've attended?
It was. Yeah, I haven't played Magic in a tournament setting in a long time because I kind of got sick of competitive Magic, and I've always really liked Cube. And yeah, was just really excited to be able to play in a Cube hall with a million people. I never thought that was something that I would do like 5 years ago. Thought Cube would always be like a niche little thing that I'd always be doing in like my friend's kitchen or. But it was really cool to see so many people united by what I believe to be the best format.
And by means of an introduction, like where are you from? What is your sort of relationship to Cube?
Yeah, I'm from northern Wisconsin. Like when you think of northern Wisconsin, think further north than that. I'm way up there. You can see Canada across the lake. Yeah, I started playing Magic around like original Innistrad and played all kinds of formats, played a lot of modern, and would always be playing friends' cubes. I never like had a super big collection myself, but it would be always fun when friends of mine would like have a cube or they'd bring it to the store and we'd like play it, or they'd build a cube and we'd play it at their house. And originally when I was in high school, me and my friends built a cube that we just like proxied fully out of like over half custom cards that we made ourselves.
True sicko stuff.
Yeah, truly crazy stuff. And that was just always a hoot. And we would play that endlessly. And there were only three of us. We kept like inventing new ways to draft with three people to keep it interesting. That's kind of my introduction to Cube, was just like people would have cubes. And then eventually we like made our own and got really creative and wacky with it, making a bunch of random stuff.
Let's talk about your CubeCon then. It was your first time and you were playing in the main event, correct?
Yeah, I played in the main event.
So how did you look at I think it was like 90 plus cubes on offer at CubeCon and decide which ones you wanted to rank in Hedron Network?
That's a great question. A lot of it was just like, I was really busy before the event. I was like hoping to do more homework and to like be able to really read and look at like all the lists. And then a few days before the event, I was like, that's not happening. I don't have time for that. I ruled out a lot of them based on kind of like my desires with Cube, like not putting shade on anybody for their Cube experience, but like I don't really get joy from playing cubes that are like, oh, it's a cube of all the cards from the same artist, or like it's a bunch of like universes beyond stuff. It's just like not really what makes me happy. So that kind of helped me get rid of some of them. I didn't want to play the mono red cube also, so I was like not doing that. But I ranked the very first cube that I played, which I had an incredible time with, was the 15 card Highlander mini cube.
I'm looking at your deck now, and it certainly has, I think it looks very sick and very cool. I've dabbled in 15-card deck formats before, but was this your first time drafting a cube where the deck construction was so small?
Definitely. I've never done anything like that before. One of my best friends has a like battle box that they've built where it's like you start with 5 cards and you can like play lands from a pool, and then you like only have so many finite resources. So I was like kind of familiar with the concept of the format of like you don't deck and you don't lose to decking and you don't draw cards really at a certain point. So I like had a bit of an introduction to that, but it was pretty new experience for me. And I had a really good time. I found out that I really like playing Magic when it's like perfect information. And I like can really just like think for a minute and just like think of all the scenarios. I also play a lot of chess. So it probably comes from that.
That tracks.
Yeah. But I feel like I had that experience with that cube, and it was really fun to just like get these kind of solvable puzzles, so to speak, of like, okay, I know what's in my opponent's deck completely. In like game 2 and 3, I know what's in their deck. I like have my stuff lined up so that I can like counteract them perfectly, and hopefully I'll end up with like just enough resources to get through in the end.
I'm looking up the card Slow Motion now. It's the only one I don't know from your deck list. How did Slow Motion play?
That one was fun. I talked to the cube designer afterwards about it, actually, because I was a little underwhelmed by the card. I thought it'd be a lot better than it was. And I think that's just because the matchups that I had. I didn't play against a lot of matchups where it like did a ton. Most of the time, though, it was just like a 3-mana removal spell.
Yeah, so the rules text on Slow Motion, which I think a lot of our listeners will not know, it's a 2 and a blue for an aura. It says during the upkeep of enchanted creature's controller, that player pays 2 or sacrifices that creature. And when Slow Motion is put into a graveyard from play, you return it to its owner's hand. This is actually part of what people maybe don't know is a cycle that includes Rancor. There was a cycle of auras that had the sort of Rancor style text. That Rancor is the only iconic one, but Slow Motion appears to be another one in that cycle. So a very slow sort of removal spell as long as your opponent is unwilling to pay 2 on their upkeep every turn.
Which in this cube, in the early game, people were pretty unwilling to do that. So it was pretty good. It never did more than kill a creature once, I'll say. And by the time I could cast it a second time, it was too late in the game and they had nothing to do with their mana anyway. So it'd be pretty inconsequential. But it was definitely like a 3-mana removal spell a lot of the time.
I feel like a lot of people have these sort of aha moments when they're playing a cube that changes Magic's rules fundamentally. Did you get into this draft and think, okay, when I do this next time, I'm going to do X thing differently?
Definitely. My biggest thing was, and I should have thought of this earlier, was like, I'm going to write down every card I see in my opponent's deck. Because the first round, I didn't do that. And then the second round, I did that in the last game. And then in the third round, both me and my opponent were also doing it. And I was like, okay, I see. Because I got into the finals. I lost the finals. But me and my opponent were both like, yep, we're just going to like write down everything in our deck so that we can like board perfectly. And then in like games 2 and 3, we can just cross out card names as they're played. So we know exactly what's in their library and what's in their hand and plan from there.
Yeah, I think that pattern comes up a lot in these small deck cubes. We realize like, oh, my opponent only has 4 cards left that I haven't seen. It has to be 25% chance it's one of these other cards. So you can just kind of start doing the math and making very informed decisions, which some people love and some people really don't like. Some people find that very exhausting and overwhelming.
Yeah, it's funny. I was hanging out with a lot of friends, part of the Chicago Cube community, because I used to live in Chicago and I've cubed with them before. And they were all like, yeah, I have the micro cubes on my like avoid list on Hedron Network. I don't want to play them. And I was like, yes, that's my favorite way to play Magic is doing all that wacky stuff.
I am looking at your next deck picture here, and it's not very hard to tell what cube it is because I'm seeing 5 copies of Energy Chamber and more cards than usual. Why don't you talk about this draft next?
Oh boy. This was like the late to dinner draft. I played the ball pit. It was kind of the perfect time to play the ball pit because it was like after 2 rounds of drafts in the main event and people were like kind of tired and hungry and, you know, your brain is like starting to melt a little bit, which I think is the perfect time to draft the most insane cube at the event. I drafted 5 copies of Energy Chamber. It was nonsense. I had a fun time.
Yeah, real quick, just in case people listening don't know, this is Jane's cube, friend of the show, Jane, where you can play any card in your pool face down as a copy of Chromatic Sphere, and you must play every single card you draft. You draft 60 cards, and you play every single one of them. There is no deck building phase, and there are no basic lands. It's a desert cube, which, you always have that sort of release valve of being able to play something as a Chromatic Star, but it's a very overwhelmingly different context to play Magic in.
Yeah, it was wacky. It was fun. I did weird stuff. That's what I signed up for.
How were the 5 energy chambers? Did this strategy work?
Okay, so I will say, and I read the primer, and in the primer, the cube creator was like, I have no interest in refining this cube, which totally respect. I do think that the like charge counters matters archetype is pretty weak in this cube. I was excited about it, and I mean, I lived the dream. I got Energy Chamber. I got, what's that card called? I'm looking at my list. It's the one where you get a second upkeep. Oh yeah, Paradox Haze.
Oh yeah, you did get the Paradox Haze with 5 copies of it. I mean, this should be the deck that it works in. Yeah. So if it didn't really pop off here, then that does make me wonder about it.
I made a bunch of tokens, but ultimately it kind of like was slow to start. And then my opponent played big creatures that just like went way bigger. And I wasn't making enough tokens fast enough. Definitely could have been user error, but yeah, I was like making 3/3s and like 2/2s and a bunch of that kind of stuff. And then my opponents would just play like Steel Hellkite and like big guys. I played against one player who was very great that played, I think, 7 copies of the 7-mana 4/4 with affinity for artifacts.
Yeah, Mirror Enforcer.
And I was just like, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm too slow. I'm too like grindy and I can't really react to like a bunch of 4/4s just being like dumped on the field.
I remember when I played this cube, I definitely had in my mind like the Mirror Enforcer test, which is like, you talk about the Vindicate test in some cubes. In this cube, it was like, if this card does not brawl well with the Mirror Enforcer, then I am going to be a little suspect of it. I'm not sure if it's still on the list, but I remember seeing Steel Leaf Champion and just thinking like, dang, triple green sure is committing a lot of my sphere mana for a card that then just trades in combat with a Mirror Enforcer. So Very unique aspect of that environment. One other card I'm seeing here, I have to mention. So I know that Sam Black, I think, drafted this cube 3 times at CubeCon, which I didn't talk to him. I assume that means he likes it and is interested in it. But I was very surprised to overhear him talking to Jane, the cube designer, and expressing that he thought Death of 1,000 Stings was very, very strong in this cube. And I'm seeing it in your pool. Did you ever actually cast this, or did you just play it face down as a sphere?
No, it's a great card because you play it face down as a sphere, and then you sacrifice it, and then your upkeep, you get it back, and then you play it face down as a sphere, and you sacrifice it, and you just get, like, card advantage every turn.
Okay, nice. Maybe I misunderstood. Yeah, so I guess he was saying you're not casting it, you're just using it as a way to get back spheres.
Exactly. So you're just playing as a sphere every turn, then you get it back.
That is such a cool use of Death of 1,000 Stings in this cube. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, one of my highlights from this draft was putting, I think it was 7 counters on my Market Back Walker, and then sacrificing it and drawing 7 cards, and then still losing, which was funny. But
the classic AB combo, draw 7 cards into scoop.
Yeah, and then I think one of my games, I sacrificed like 20 some spheres, and I just like couldn't find anything relevant, and then I just got beat down by 4/4s for 0 mana.
The Mirror Enforcers, they're running amok.
Yeah. Something funny about this cube is the person that went 3-0 in my pod, I thought their mentality was really funny. They were like, I am going to just like ignore the mechanic of the spheres and just draft cheap aggressive creatures and lands, and hopefully that will just like go under whatever nonsense other people are trying to do with these like wacky mechanics, and they just like went 3-0.
Huh. Did you oversee any of their games? Were they not playing anything as spheres, basically, just curving out?
I think that's what I was told. I didn't see any of their games because my games went to time because I was doing grindy stuff. So I was too busy doing my own nonsense. But yeah, that's just what people in the pod had told me. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. I can understand that perspective. And I think that might be like a way to spike it if you're trying to spike the ball pit. But I don't know why you'd be doing that in the first place.
As a designer of some weirdo cubes myself, it is oftentimes hard to not make the best strategy be to ignore the weird thing and just try and play normal Magic. Turns out normal Magic, pretty OP.
Yeah.
What was your next draft in the main event?
This is going backwards because that was the late to dinner draft. My second draft on Friday was, I think it's called like the kitchen table or the tabletop cube. It was just like an all-around good cube.
That's actually also Jane's cube. That's Jane's other cube that was in the event. Same designer of the ball pit.
Yeah, I saw some of the like writing on some of the cards, and I was like, the person who designed this seems cool. I'm just gonna like play it and see what it's like. But I have never drafted a cube before where it like has such abundant fixing. Like this cube had, I think, like double fetches, double duels or something. And that's an environment that I wasn't used to. And then I picked lands too highly and ended up with like kind of a pile that didn't really work. And I went 0-3.
Is this the like 4-color blue deck you sent me a picture of?
That was the one from the next day. This one was like lands matter synergy stuff. I had like depths and hex mage, the make yourself a merit lage. I beat someone out doing that a few times, but ultimately I was just like too slow, too grindy. I had Isochron Scepter and like Pass to Exile and some other stuff, but ultimately it was just like, it wasn't like, there wasn't too much cohesion. It was just kind of like good cards that were good, but then I didn't have enough like really good synergy, I think.
And you're saying you were basically like using draft heuristics from other cubes. So you were like, oh, wow, 8th pick fetch land, I'm in. And then you got to the draft and you're like, oh, I have 18 playables.
Right. Yeah. I think it was more like 1st and 2nd pick fetch land, which upon hindsight, I'm like, I shouldn't have picked such highly for fetch lands if there was such an abundance of them in the cube. But, it was my first time doing something like that. I definitely learned, and I'd be excited to do it again with a different perspective in the future.
Do you have a control proclivity? Do you often play control? Is that your preferred archetype?
I haven't played like really crazy combo stuff, as you'll see in the 2 drafts that I did the day after, or even 3. But I do like controls play patterns. I am a little averse to aggro. Not that like if I was playing a draft to win, I would, read the signals, draft openly. But ultimately at CubeCon, I was just like having a good time and doing what I wanted to do. So I just drafted into some like pretty wacky stuff that didn't win a lot of games, but I had a great time.
Let's talk day 2 then.
So day 2, I did 100 Ways to Draft as my first draft, which is like a synergy cube where you start the draft with a Cogwork librarian in front of you so you can use it. And I took pack one, pick one. I said, I will use my Cogwork librarian, and I put it into the pack, and I took out Sword of the Meek and Krark Clan Ironworks.
Really committing, extremely committing from the bat.
Really committing immediately from the beginning. Yeah, and then I ended up going into artifacts, synergy, crazy combo stuff. I like beat people on turn 5 pretty frequently. I got like Enlightened Tutor. Eventually in pack 3, I got Thopter Foundry. And I just like had a pretty streamlined engine that I could build and use to win. I think I went 2-1 in that one. Pretty fun. My opponents also had a great time.
Now, you mentioned you played Modern a little bit. Was like KCI combo or Thopter Sword combo something you had been familiar with, or is this your first time dabbling in that combo?
Totally. So I stopped playing Modern when Moxopol got banned, which will tell you a bit about me. I was one of those people that had like never really played KCI, and then a friend like built it and lent it to me for regionals, and I went like 8-0 in the first 8 rounds or something. I just love the deck. I love the play patterns. I like had a really good time just doing absolutely obnoxious things. The fact that it's a mana ability is like so egregious. I like once had somebody play like that split second exile stuff from your graveyard and then exile every card in your deck with the same name as it. And I was like, okay, I'm really sorry, but you don't understand how this interaction works.
Guess I'll combo off in response to your split second spell.
Exactly. And then they called the judge, and the judge was like, yeah, mana abilities famously don't use the stack. So yeah, very silly, very broken deck. But definitely like the way that I like to play Magic is just like building a big engine and doing a bunch of obnoxious things. And I really got to live that dream in this draft, and that was a really great time.
That fully justifies your pack 1 using of your Cogwork Librarian to hard commit to a narrow combo deck if you know that you love that combo deck and are a capable pilot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I think it was this one where in the primer there was a section of being like, there is a KCI like craziness deck in this, or maybe it was in the Sweet Treats one, I forget, but basically they were like, there's a craziness deck in this draft, and if you don't know how to do it, don't draft it. And I was like, oh, I really hope I get it. And then first pack, it's like Sword and the KCI, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're in it. We're so in it.
There are definitely, I find, 2 mindsets to the cubes where you start with a Cogwork Librarian, and one is people that will very often use it on the first pack and just use it as an excuse to kind of commit to something, and the other is the person that leaves pack 1 with 6 of them and is like, I don't even have any cards yet. I'll figure out what I'm drafting in pack 2. Which is also a strategy.
Totally. Definitely part of the first group of players in that dichotomy.
What a thrill, though, to get to be able to play a combo you know so well in a like limited singleton drafted environment. That would be really fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And then I had like a bunch of stuff with modular and just like artifacts, synergies. So even if I like got this combo shut down or I didn't draw into it or something, I still had like a okay aggressive curve of like Arcbound Shikari and like Patchwork Automaton and all kinds of nonsense.
I've basically never really played Constructed, so I guess my sort of perspective on this doesn't really matter. But I always feel like that's the really cool thing about drafting combo in cubes is that it's not as prescriptive as combo and Constructed because you can't really, unless Singleton is extremely heavily broken, like make something anywhere near as consistent as a Constructed deck. So you have a combo deck that also has to have like a plan B fair strategy that usually has some synergistic overlap with the combo. And I think it's just a really cool way to like work with combos in Magic.
Yeah, definitely.
What's up next?
The next one, which I think may be in contention for my favorite deck that I drafted all weekend, was Mono Blue. This was in a Study in Harmony cube.
Okay, Matt Grenier's cube.
Which was a blast. Yeah, that may be my favorite cube all weekend. I keep saying this about all the cubes, but that one was like so interesting to draft, and the decisions like the amount of synergies that were overlapping was so fun to try and like build a deck out of during the drafting process. And then even after, I just had an absolute blast with this cube. But I drafted Mono Blue, splash all 4 other colors, self-mill, enchantment synergy with Laboratory Maniac and Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah, this is true sicko shit from what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I don't even know how to start with this one. I think I got pack 1, pick 2. I think I got Labman. And I just like was looking at it and I was like, okay, I think I understand the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And then picked up a bunch of enchantments that synergized with each other. Yeah, some highlights like I got to play, well, I was playing every color. Okay, it was crazy because I drafted 11 non-basics, which was all of my fixing. And then I put in 6 islands. And I was drafting 5 color, but I was consistently able to cast Cryptic Command on turn 4 every game.
Oh yeah, wait, I just saw the Cling to Dust. I didn't realize it was a full 5 colors.
Oh, yeah. Cling to Dust and Rona's Vortex.
Yeah, and kicking Rhoda's Vortex. Very cool. Yeah, this is a sick deck, to be perfectly honest.
One of my favorite moments was I had Ballad of the Black Flag, which is like it's a saga and it like mills you 4 every turn, and then you can return a historic card from your graveyard to your hand. And then the last mode before it gets sacrificed is historic spells you cast this turn cost 2 less to cast.
Okay.
And so I like played Ballad, waited. Last tick of Ballad. Most of my deck is in my graveyard. And I just went Teshar for 2 mana, cast like 3 historic spells, get a bunch of value, get like Laboratory Maniac back, get a bunch of stuff back. And my opponent was just like, what is going on?
I don't see any artifacts in the system. Historic spells are legends and sagas that you're casting here off of that.
Yeah.
Off of that discount. It's not like you're playing a bunch of like eggs or whatever.
No, I do have one artifact, which is the Everflowing Well, which was really great. It's just like 1 mana, mill 2, draw 2 when I had the discount, but mostly like sagas and legendaries. I had like this one red-green legendary that was really surprising to see, like a red-green legendary that was like enchantment based. But yeah, that was really fun. I had a really fun match against, it was like, I think it was Mardu artifacts, where they were like doing a bunch of artifact stuff, and we had like an insanely close game 2 that I lost because I was the worst player. I will say it. They just played better than me. So shout out to you, whoever, if you're listening to this. But we just had like such a fun round, just doing really funny stuff all the time.
Yeah, so what made this, a contender for your favorite deck of the weekend specifically? Just what was it about this deck you love so much?
I think it was like the whole experience with this cube, like the amount of overlapping synergies, the complexity in the deck building, the like amount of decisions in the games was like really something that I like don't think I've had like this before in a cube environment or like in any, of just like so much overlapping synergy. It was really cool. I like had a lot of fun thinking about all the crazy different angles that I could use on my spells. And it was just like not a deck that I like thought going into, I was like, oh, I'm playing Synergy Cube. I'll probably just like come up with something where I didn't think I'd be like self-mill fast as Oracle, win 5 games out of the pod.
Sick. Very sick. Are you paying attention to like the rankings at this point when you are drafting? Is that a thing you care about at all? Or are you just playing vibes and playing cubes you like to play and not worrying about it?
Pretty much that. Mostly just playing vibes, playing cubes I wanted to play. I mean, it would have been cool if I did well, just because then I would have been to play more cubes. But I was really hoping to trophy 1 cube, which I didn't do, but gotta save something for the future. 2 of the friends that I was with that were like trying to spike the event, both top 64, and I was really proud of them. But I was like, I'm just here to like have a blast and play some wacky Magic.
Seems like you succeeded in that. These are definitely like some ambitious cube selections, I would say. Like these cubes to me, honestly, I'm looking at them and like, I'm not sure I want to draft most of these cubes, especially back to back on a long day of Magic. My brain would be fried.
Totally. And then the very last cube of Saturday that I drafted, I put a bunch of cubes on my list. There was 1 cube that I put as my top ranking on my list for the second round that I didn't get because somebody in the previous round was in the pod and noticed a proxy in the cube and called the judge and pointed it out. I don't know if you'll cut this segment, but if you're in a cube at an event and you see a proxy, whatever you do, don't raise your hand. Just shut the heck up and just keep drafting because who the heck cares?
Look the other way, narc.
Look the other way, exactly. So that was unfortunate. I couldn't play that cube that I was like most excited for as the Sweet Treats cube. But the very last cube that I drafted was one that I didn't rank at all on my list.
Oh, interesting. You got fully random into something.
I got fully random. I got thrown into the Oathbreaker Cube, which is I had never heard of Oathbreaker. Apparently, it's like a very niche commander format where you like get a planeswalker and a instant or sorcery spell that live in your command zone, and then you can like cast them from the command zone using normal commander stuff, and you can cast the instant or sorcery spell only if you control your commander.
This is a crazy thing to get fully randomed into. Like, I would consider dropping personally at that point, but how did you feel about getting put into a cube that was a sort of niche format you'd never heard of before?
I was not thrilled. Nothing against the Oathbreaker Cube. Like, I had some fun. It's just like, I'm not very into Planeswalkers as a card type. I think they're fun, but like when it's just like a deck or a cube full of like Planeswalkers, matters, synergies, it's like, less interesting to me and what I like to play out of Magic. No shade to anybody that's like into that thing. Great. Just not my cup of tea. But I tried to make the most of it. I was like, okay, there was like 3 people that didn't show up because I think, multiple people were in the same boat. So like
Oh,
multiple
interesting.
people just like didn't show up to the table. So we had to wait a pretty long time to get people to fill the spots. One of which was the Cube designer, which was cool to be able to play against him. It's really funny because I'm very used to like drafting crazy decks and people just like looking at my decks being like, what the heck is going on? And the Cube designer, after I drafted my deck, was like, what the heck is going on? I played like blue, black, splash, white, red, mono control with my commander was like the Vraska that ultimates and gives people poison counters, which was my only win condition. And I did that multiple times. I won the first round against aggro, and then I played the second round and lost against some like grindy deck. And then I dropped. I was like, yeah, if I can't trophy, it's just not worth it. It also like nothing against people that are into this kind of thing, but I had like a lot of the on cards. And like whenever I saw those in a pack, I was just like, I'm just like not going to read this card. If a card says Spider-Man 2099, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to put that in my deck. I refuse to play with that. And I do think that like was definitely part of it. Of like a lot of the cards were like that. So I don't think I drafted the best that I could have given that, but that's just my attitude.
That's the thing about a big event like this, right? And it's part of what's beautiful about Cube is that there are different cubes for different tastes in the game. And, I think it's unfortunate when the Hedron Network software has to end up full randoming people into a cube pod. That's not ideal, obviously, and you'd hope that wouldn't happen almost at all at a big event. But yeah, sometimes it does happen like that. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you completely. Like, it's not my kind of magic, but I'm so glad it's someone else's kind of magic, and I'm so glad they built a cube that's all about it. And I hope they have the time of their life playing it. But I would definitely be trying not to play that kind of magic if I were, especially, multiple drafts a day. It's just not what I'm into.
Yeah, definitely same.
So overall, your experience at CubeCon was positive, it sounds like.
I had an incredible time. Earlier in the year, I was really excited to hear that I had been selected for the fellowship, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go. And it was a really great experience being able to play Cube with that many people. Nothing I've ever done before, but something that I will definitely try and do more in the future because it was such a fun experience.
Do you have a cube of your own?
That's funny you ask, because I currently don't. I haven't been like that into Magic. I don't own my own cards, but I have a friend that has a cube that I've played a lot. But after this weekend, I was inspired and I've started throwing together a cube on Cube Cobra.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. I feel like every time I leave CubeCon, I always end up designing a new cube like within a month afterwards. And so I was curious if you either had been bitten by that bug or were going to be making some changes to your own cubes based on your experience. Do you want to like tease a little bit of what this list might be, what you were inspired by?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about it. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good. It might be hot garbage, but it is a like land synergy based desert cube.
I personally don't think that can be hot garbage, frankly.
It might be hot garbage in that red might be too powerful and too oppressive with like land destruction. And the current problem I'm running into is that it's going to be like a very green centered cube because there's like, I don't know, 140 green cards or something, and then like 30 of every other color. So I'm still figuring out how to balance things, but I think land destruction might be too overpowered. So I'm trying to figure out a way to mitigate land destruction being too overpowered.
Some colors got to be the best. If it's red or green, I mean, that's just could be the nature of the cube. But I'm really excited to hear that you got inspired enough to start putting your own cube list together, because I just think it's so rewarding and so fun. And for a capable and like, galaxy brained player like yourself, I think you have a lot to offer cube design by putting together something that allows you to draft the kinds of really weird synergistic piles it seems like you like to pilot.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. I'm excited to see how people like my weird cubes in the future.
Do you have any parting thoughts?
I just had a great time. Shout out to all the people that I played against. Y'all were all really sweet. Yeah. Still thinking a lot about those games and still like being like, oh, I could have done that better. Could have done that better, as you do. But yeah, I overall had a great time, played some really great cubes, and am very inspired to try and start a bigger little cube community in my very rural community in northern Wisconsin.
Well, I'm so glad you were there. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you while I was at the event. We just didn't bump into you at all. It was a really big event. There was a bunch of people I like didn't see at all that I was hoping to bump into. But yeah, I am so glad you had a great time. And yeah, I think it was just good for everybody that you were there.
Definitely. Oh, and shout out Noah. This person named Noah came up to me and was like, "I'm so glad you're here," because I was wearing the t-shirt, and that was really sweet, and I appreciated that. So shout out Noah for being nice to me.
I bet I know which Noah that is. There's a couple of Noahs out there, but I have a sneaking suspicion I know which Noah that is. So, yeah, sick. Well, thank you, Wildflower. This has been so great to hear about your experience. And yeah, I think you have a very different experience of CubeCon from me because you draft cubes that are too scary for my little brain to comprehend. So it's cool to hear about the other side, how the other side lives.
Heck yeah. It was great to be there.